some paths may be better than others. And just because I see one that works doesn't mean that it's the best or the right one, but I can see them very quickly. And that's how I knew at that time. I was like, I'm not going to stay here. This is not going to be for me.
Welcome to the SGV Master Key, a show where you will hear personal stories of triumph over failures and how others successfully navigated the unique landscape that is the San Gabriel Valley. What makes us different? Well, just like you, we have chosen the San Gabriel Valley for our home or businesses or both. We believe it is the people and small businesses that make this community great, and we love to share their stories with you. We always encourage your questions and feedback, and you can find all of our contact information at sgvmasterkey.com. Here are the hosts for the show, Russell Mano and Scott Warmoth.
Okay, welcome to another episode. Thank you for tuning in again. And if you've listened to the previous episode, that was one where we went into a little bit of my past and who I am. But
we want to continue with that.
Yeah.
We'll spend this session also going into more of what shaped you and what makes you today, what you are. And we had a very good conversation last episode talking about your childhood and things that were impactful to you as you were growing up. And we were just getting into your experience in the Army. And I'm impressed by how, for you, the Army was such a positive experience in what it allowed you to escape from and what it allowed you to develop into, and just what you learned as lifelong rules and experiences that have shaped you. As we closed out the last episode, I had just mentioned how you had felt that in the Army, you had the best leadership examples of anything in your life outside of the Boy Scout leaders that you also had. So talk about the Army in terms of what it's meant to you, how it's affected you. But I know from my own experience in dealing with you, the Army has always been I'm not aware of a negative experience you had in the Army. Nothing that was significant anyway.
No. Yeah, I actually really enjoyed the Army. Well, I served also in the reserves, the Army National Guard, which was very different from active duty, but I enjoyed the military. I enjoyed the life that was, everything was planned out. This is the time you're going to wake up. This is the time you're going to eat. This is the uniform that you're going to wear. And that all seemed relatively easy for me. But I did have really outstanding leaders in the Army. And I guess that started in basic training, because you had individuals who were very hard on you, very tough, but they knew their stuff. They demanded you what they demanded of themselves. And that's, anybody who has demands placed on them from someone, I think automatically you look at them and you assess whether or not they are living up to their own standards, right? Because how are you going to impose this on me if you're not doing it? And I remember that the drill sergeants were always, they knew that they excelled in what they demanded of each soldier, and I could see that.
And I can just envision the kind of respect you would have for that kind of person.
Yes.
That expects a lot, but gives a lot, delivers a lot.
Right. So, they're on you for how you walk, how you talk, how you salute, how you move, the things that you remember. They're on you all the time. And in their own ways, they demonstrate to us that they know all that, and they carry that out every single day. And I really, really respected that.
And one of the things we think of when we think of something like the Army is, would you want to get into a foxhole with this person? You know, will they be there for you when needed? But you must have felt that.
Maybe not so much from the drill sergeants. I think somewhat with the people you go through basic training with, but they don't end up being your lifelong friends. I don't think, you just go through a training course for 8 weeks and then you're off with new people. And even those people you don't really spend that much time with. So the real relationships are developed once you get to your regular unit.
So where was your regular unit?
Well, after Kentucky, Fort Knox, Kentucky, I went to Aberdeen, Maryland. I spent several months there learning my craft, or my military occupational specialty, which is MOS. So everyone has a designator of their job or whatnot. And after Maryland, I went to Germany. I lived in Germany for 2 years.
And you worked as a mechanic. Were you on just a single base that whole 2 years, or did you move around?
So I was assigned to Gießen base in Germany, which is about an hour north of Frankfurt, an hour away from Frankfurt, which is in West Germany. And I was there the whole 2 years, but we would go on training missions to southern Germany, for months.
To what extent could you experience Germany?
So being in the regular Army as opposed to being in a training environment like Kentucky or Maryland, it's basically like a job. You're responsible to show up on time, you have hours, and you're off on the weekend for the most part. And outside of that regular schedule, then you have some training where it's 24/7. But basically you just have a job. So you're free to explore in the evening. You're free to explore on most weekends, and you have every federal holiday off. You get, long weekends. You get time. As a federal employee, everybody gets 30 days of vacation a year. So I had a lot of time to travel.
I told you I've never been in the military and never really been around military people. So I've always found your experience in the Army to be fascinating, what I've learned, and what you've taught me about rank and just how you have to follow rank and you have to follow your superior's orders, and that's always been fascinating to me. But what I'm learning now is that it was also a job. Yeah. I mean, just like a job, and you would get time off and you would get to go into town on the weekends and that sort of thing. So for a certain part of the day, you're very regulated and regimented, and then you're off.
Yes. Yeah.
And did you all live together? When you're in a base, what does that mean?
So I guess military housing is similar across different bases. Soldiers or enlisted soldiers, they live in barracks, and they live in the lower rank barracks. So E1 through E4 live together. And then once you become a non-commissioned officer, if you still live on base, you live in NCO barracks. So there's no fraternization between NCOs and enlisted, lower enlisted.
By rule or just
yes.
by?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You can.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. And there's also married housing. So you can be a lower enlisted or an officer, and you have married housing. So you don't live in the barracks, but you have families living together and housing outside the base. And so there's married housing for enlisted soldiers, NCOs, and then officers housing. So why did they separate? Is this just because you need to learn to respect authority and know that you are different from them? I'm not sure why the reasons are. I have my assumptions. When you enter the military, you basically give up your constitutional rights. You're now governed under the Uniform Code of Military Justice. You don't have, the freedom of speech. You don't have the freedom of assembly. and you're governed under a totally different rule. And I can see now that it is difficult to follow the orders of a superior if you are friends with them. And that really matters, I guess, when, bullets are flying. You need to have that. So they're like, everything is available in a manual on how you can do certain things, what you can do, to a T, so that you could always refer to it. And even discipline, the reasons that you can discipline a soldier, the amount of time, and all of that. So there was a sergeant that was in my motor pool who was abusing that, and he would abuse his rank to discipline soldiers. And I would tell him, you can't do that. This is what the manual says. You can only perform so much physical punishment for something, and this is what it says. And
how do they respond?
Well, he didn't like that, but all the other sergeants in my motor pool, they agreed.
You have said that the leadership is something that you had respected. There were particular leaders that were very meaningful to you. So who were the leaders that you really respected? What was it that made them a person that you respected?
Well, I don't think I would respond well to a lot of screaming and yelling, mostly because I don't think that that's as effective. Like it's only effective to a certain point, right? People who try to lead with fear and control. And I didn't have those kind of leaders in the Army. What I did have were people who were very competent at what they did. And that was something that I felt I needed, right? Like, if you're asking me to do something, I expect that you could do it just as well, if not better. And they were also very compassionate. And so maybe you think about the Army and you think everybody's sort of hard-nosed and yells and screams and demands things. My experience with my leaders, and specifically Sergeant Poling and Sergeant Hill. Sergeant Poling was my squad sergeant, and Sergeant Hill was my platoon sergeant. And they both were extremely competent at what they did, but they earned the respect of their soldiers. They didn't just say, okay, I'm this rank and you need to follow what I say and do just because that actually doesn't really work. It is just like there may be ranks, but people are not going to respect you, right? So they were really great, just really great leaders that I looked up to.
Do you know where they are today?
Sergeant Poling, I think, moved back to Virginia or West Virginia, one of those two. And Sergeant Hill, I haven't seen or spoken to him. Sergeant Poling I see on social media, but Sergeant Hill, I knew he retired with like 20-something years. He left while I was in at 20-something years, and he got offered a job, leaving the military, and that's the last I heard of him.
Well, you went into the military for reasons of, among others, I guess, the opportunity to get the GI Bill,
yes.
Right? So you did go on after the military and got a graduate degree as well as your undergraduate.
So the military, everybody gets the Montgomery GI Bill. And the Army, if you score high enough on the ASVAB, you qualify for what's called the Army College Fund. And that's an additional money. And that money is only available to you if you are enrolled in school. And every month they check, you have to submit how many units you're taking, what your grades are. And once that's verified, then you get money back. So it's not like they just hand you over, a check for.
And all this is post-military.
Yes.
Where you have left the military, you're now enrolled in school. And if you can prove it, they will reimburse you for what you've spent.
Yes. But, so in the last episode, I said this was my goal, October of my senior year, go to the military, get money for college, go to college. So I got out of the military officially or out of active duty in December of 1999, and I was in school in January 2000.
Boy, I wonder what it would have been like if you'd stayed another 1 or 2 years and 9/11.
Oh, yeah.
It must have changed a lot of things.
Yeah, so before I got out of active duty, I actually reenlisted for the reserves. So 6 years, I reenlisted into the California Army National Guard, and so I was still in the military when 9/11 happened.
Were you called up?
No. A lot of my friends in different units were, but we were not.
So at that point, you were attending Cal State LA?
Yes.
And what kind of degree did you get?
I got a degree in psychology.
That's your undergraduate?
Yes.
And why did you choose that?
I think to help understand the things that I went through as a child,
Could we go back a second? To what extent did the things you experienced in the military help you understand what you went through as a child, or did they?
I'm not sure. I didn't think so much about that. I remember Sergeant Poling, for some reason, pulled me aside one day and he said, "I bet you that you were the same way before the military, and the military has not changed you at all." I remember him saying that, and I never thought about it until he said that, and I said, "Yeah, you're probably right."
Well, he probably really knows people.
I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe it didn't help you understand, but did it make you come to terms with things that had happened? Did the military, just that experience, help you stabilize? You liked the regularity and the regimentation of the military. Mm-hmm. Did that help stabilize you in sort of a long-term way?
I'm not sure, but I remember for some time, whenever I was going to take on something unfamiliar or new, or that would take a long time, I would always say, I was in the military. I would say to myself, I planned this, plan out, I executed it, and I did that. And now I can lean on that to know that I can do other things. But as far as helping to understand my childhood, I don't think so much. No.
But that's what you chose psychology for.
To help understand. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And how did that work out?
Not like I hoped, it didn't bring a lot of answers to my own upbringing. That came much later, probably in my mid-30s, when I was really investigating more about my family dynamic growing up. But I wouldn't say that it helped answer much of anything.
Did you work while you were going to school?
I did.
What were you doing?
Well, I was in the National Guard, and I was also working at a law firm.
And you got your degree, and then did you immediately get a graduate degree?
No, I don't have a postgraduate degree. I have other furthering education in different fields, but no. Immediately after college, I took the GRE. I wanted to go into graduate work for psychology. And in psychology, there's a big divergence after your undergrad between research and therapy. And you have to decide on one or the other. And my professor at the time wanted me to do some research with him. And I thought, okay, I can become a professor. I can do research. I can create studies, social studies and in psychology and do that. And I thought that that's what I wanted to do for a while. And really what turned me off to that was one of my professors had a master's and a PhD from Harvard and was teaching at Cal State LA. And I thought, okay, it must be very difficult to get a good position if you're here.
Right. That makes sense. Well, you're at this time living again in Monterey Park?
My mom had moved to San Gabriel.
Okay.
Yeah, at that time. So.
And you went back home?
Yes.
And lived there?
Yes.
How were you able, was your brother still there?
He was there, yes.
And so was this experience post-Army any different than your experience growing up?
With my brother?
Yeah. And life at home, the tension that you had always felt.
There was healing in this time. There was my brother. We were Lutheran growing up. We went to a Lutheran church, and I guess while I was away, my brother had started going to a non-denominational church, Mosaic, and he was, I guess, dealing with a lot of things in his life at that time, and he really wanted to confront what he had done with me. And from what I know about people who have experienced trauma at the hands of other people, they very rarely get an apology, very rarely. And my brother apologized deeply, and we must have cried together like what felt like hours. And I know that was tremendously healing for me to hear the person who had hurt me so badly say to me that he was wrong, that he was sorry. That was really powerful. And that happened at that time when we moved to San Gabriel.
And at this time you were still studying and finally graduated. Did you stay at home?
I did. I stayed at home. I went into the corporate environment. I went to work for a commercial insurance company, Tokyo Marine Management in Pasadena, in Lake in Colorado. And probably within a couple months, I knew that this was not for me. The corporate environment, going to a desk, doing the same thing or similar thing every day, and seeing where that would lead to in terms of where I saw, managers and directors. And I was like, this is not what I want to do. Not just in insurance, but I didn't want to do that type of thing for the rest of my life. And I knew that within a couple months.
I guess in dissecting a person's life, which we're doing with you, all of these things are happening simultaneously. You've had this huge emotional release with your brother. At the same time, you're building your own life. You're discovering you don't want to do this for a living and you want to do something else. It's still so many things going through your mind. And do you know where you are at that time and where you want to go, what you want to do? You're still experimenting and experiencing,
right?
More than anything, I would think.
Right.
You're probably 21, 22 years old?
Yes. Well, my brother once described me as someone, well, he described himself as, if he's going from point A to point B and he gets a splinter, that completely derails him. And he contrasted that with what he thought of me. And he said that you can go from point A to B and get like both your legs blown off and you're still going to find another way to get there. And how I see or how I make connections on different paths to take it, I describe it as like almost like electric current or lightning. And that very quickly I can see all the different paths. And some paths may be better than others. And just because I see one that works doesn't mean that it's the best or the right one, but I can see them very quickly. And that's how I knew at that time. I was like, I'm not going to stay here. This is not going to be for me. And I was okay to try something else, but I knew like very quickly, I can't waste time here. I don't want to waste time here. And I went to open a mortgage company, and I did that for a few years. And as the money was coming in, the checks were being cashed. It was very unfulfilling, very unfulfilling. And I remember also thinking, what kind of life is this, you know?
An emptiness, huh?
Yes, yes. The only thing that I was pursuing at that time was the next check and the next check. And I didn't feel it was fulfilling. It wasn't rewarding. And I knew I couldn't do that either.
So what did you do?
So then I did some soul searching, and I spoke to some of my brother's friends who were also 8-9 years older, very successful in their career paths. And they always told me, do what you love to do, and the money will follow you, but you have to do that. And they would tell me that they pursued it the other way. They're making, $300,000 and they're not happy. And that was really impactful for me at that age, because I was like, well, you're so successful. Look at all these things that you have. And they're like, no, don't do that. So, my brother gave me a book around the same time called Discover Your Strengths. And I took the test, and my number one strength was developer, or is developer. And out of the 40 different strengths in that book, I thought, well, that one doesn't sound that exciting. What is that? How am I going to use that to find a job? So I'll set that aside for now. But a starting point in that journey of discovering or looking for what I wanted to do was, what do I love? And someone said, what are you doing on your spare time when you're not getting paid for it? And 100% that was always basketball and working out. I'd been doing that since I was 14. And so I said, okay, I'm just going to trust that alone. 100% I know I'm passionate about it. I love it. I'm doing it without getting paid. Let's just see where this goes. And that's where I started in fitness.
You started training?
Well, I got a job at Alley Fitness in Arcadia, and I was first in sales, training sales. And what they would have me do is, take new members through a workout and convince them to buy training. And I was doing very well at that, but I felt like I was deceiving them, because what happens at Alley Fitness after you sell them on training, they believe that they're going to train with me, and then you pass them off to a trainer. So that didn't feel very good for me, but that's how they had their system set up. And after a few months of that, I said, can I just become a trainer, which was a step down? And they said, oh, we don't do that. And I asked them, who can authorize that? Because that's really what I want to do. Because I could still sell even though I was a trainer. So I could still do that job, but I can actually stick with the people. And the income would be more stable. Whereas over here was all sales, and here I can control my income if I had enough clients. So they granted that exception. They demoted me in my own club from training manager to trainer, which really doesn't happen. And I would say within less than a year, my schedule was like just fully booked. With 40 hours in a week to schedule, I had 60 hours to choose from. And so I said, okay, I think I made a good decision.
So you were happy. And I believe, I could be wrong, but that's still basically your life today. More than anything is training, right?
Yes. I do more manual therapy now. When I first started, I didn't do that. My education sort of took me in that path, but yeah.
So you're still very fulfilled and satisfied doing this type of work.
Oh, yeah. Yes, very much so. I learned that I love being with my clients. I love working with them. I love the interaction. Having gone through some growth, which you're familiar with, I've gotten rid of negative or toxic people, including some clients that I had. And I really, really feel fulfilled.
I did see a whole process that you went through of, as you said, somewhat shedding the toxicity from your life. and that was done in many ways. But you built up to a point, then you felt you had to shed this, and then there's been your life since then. So what was going on as you were building up to this point?
To this point of shedding something in my life?
Before you started to shed.
Okay. Failed relationships. Numerous ones, including a failed marriage, and then a 3-year failed relationship after that. And I would describe myself as a hopeless romantic, wanting to have everlasting love and family. And that's who I've been, and that's what I wanted. And it's not for not trying, but I just, they were failing. They were constantly failing my relationships.
What kind of relationships were you finding yourself in?
Well, a marriage that didn't last 2 years. And after that, a relationship that lasted 3 years, but probably 2 years too long. And I stayed in that one because there was a child, not my child, but a child that I'd grown to love. So that was hard to leave. And having not really learned or taken the time to assess why those failed, and feeling the desire to just not be alone, I jumped into another relationship that was quite bad, very bad, in fact. Yeah.
It was a bad relationship, but it did something to completely open your eyes, didn't it?
Oh, yes. Yes. I would say that was the biggest catalyst for change in my life up to that point.
So from this very negativity and toxicity came a self-realization.
Yes.
And this is when you felt you needed to shed.
Yeah. Yeah. The thing that was hardest to look at was, or to be honest with myself about, was the common denominator in all those relationships was me. I am the common denominator. I am the one choosing these people. I'm the one that is failing at this. And I had to look inward rather than say, I just having bad luck. What is it about me?
And what was it about you that did make you do that?
A lot of things, but one of them was, I would say, I didn't love myself enough. I wasn't good at setting good boundaries. And part of that was that what I later learned was how I grew up. That was the norm for me. The norm was that my boundaries don't matter. What other people think matters more. I need to set my feelings aside for someone else. Those types of things. More harmful was this idea that love and hurt not only can coexist, but should, and that's the norm. That people who hurt you can also love you. And that's what I grew up with. And so being in relationships where I still believe this to be true allowed me to endure a lot of boundary violations, a lot of pain caused from someone that's supposed to care for me. And that was familiar to me. I didn't know any different. And that's why I stayed in bad relationships for a long time.
So as a very introspective person, you were able to address these things head on. Many people may not be able to do that, but I do remember I was there during part of this and what you were going through. And it was a very, there was a lot of pain that you were going through, and it was very painful to realize the decisions that you had made. And as you said, these were decisions you made. Other people weren't making these decisions. You did.
Yes.
And you had to fully account to yourself. And that was a very painful process, wasn't it?
Oh, yes. Yeah. But like my wife says, and I agree with, like, if you are interested in really having love and relationship, you don't quit because you've had failures. You learn and you get up again and you try again. And my desire was really to have love and have family. And so I was fueled to learn and grow from that experience. But initially what moved me to learn about what I had gone through was because that the last relationship was so unusual, so toxic, and unlike any other relationship I'd ever been in or heard of, that I really needed to seek answers to find out what had happened.
Well, I remember you went so far as to research very thoroughly the issues that needed to be researched as a result of this relationship. And you wrote as I remember, a 40-page paper.
33.
33, yeah. Which many people just won't do, can't do, won't do. But there was a drive in you to get at the problem and to root it out of you. Right.
So we're sort of vague right now for the listeners, like what kind of relationship this was. But I was involved with a person who I feel was a dangerous, disturbed person. And I will label it as a sociopath. And I don't use that term lightly. I don't use it frivolously or just to describe someone that was difficult. I mean, by the very definition and the way that it is used in psychology, the way that they're diagnosed is it's not a clinical diagnosis. You can't take their blood and determine it. So it's based on observation. So based on my observation and the criteria, this person met a lot, if not all, of the characteristics of a sociopath. And it was terrifying for me once I started to research that. One, because I felt like I was in the presence of someone who could and did do me harm, psychological harm, mental, emotional, and physical harm.
And physical.
Yeah. And that was quite terrifying. One, to not really realize that how I was contributing to all this. And really my research was to not ever have this happen again. How can I equip myself to be better prepared to identify this type of thing? And so I really dove heavily into learning the tactics of these type of people, to be able to spot it, how other people have gotten over it. That was my drive. And to sort of help with the healing process is why I wrote the paper.
Well, I know from being with you the last 8 years, this was happening during that time period, and you really have devoted a lot of time to learning the behaviors, things that you need to look for in a person.
Yes. And
you sought help online.
Yes.
Through sites that put you into contact with other people who had also suffered these harms.
Yes. I was in the throes of PTSD, and you were there. I had lost, I think, 35 pounds. I was constantly anxious, and I was at the point I was researching therapy for PTSD. And what I learned was that most therapies, I never came across one review of a person having success from therapy for PTSD. And I thought that was quite strange. And so I said, okay, maybe that's not the option. I still am seeking help. And what I found was that a shared experience is the best help for people with PTSD. And I always use this as an example. I had a client whose brother was in the military and has PTSD. He has PTSD because he saw his friend blown up in Iraq. And I think his words were like, no one can tell me what it's like to sit in front of and speak to your friend in the morning and then later on seeing him being blown up. And, so no therapist can really know what that feels like. But if that soldier talks to another soldier, they can share that experience. So that's what I was seeking. I was seeking a shared experience, if you will, with other people.
Oh, that's a great observation. And it makes me understand now
PTSD.
What you mean, that therapy won't help that.
No.
But shared experience will.
Yes. Because they know the words. They know the sensitivities that you have because they felt it. They know how to angle into those conversations in a way that's meaningful and impactful and lets you know, hey, I know exactly how you feel.
And you were getting this benefit by being able to share what you had experienced with other similar victims.
Yes.
And
yeah, they like to, I learned they like to refer to themselves as survivors.
Survivors.
Yeah. So other survivors, I joined 3 groups on Facebook for this topic. And 2 of them I ended up leaving because there's a lot of really hurt people in those groups, and they just weren't for me. I'll just say it wasn't for me. And the one group that I ended up staying with, there was a guy in there that I met, and he had a very similar experience to my experience, and he shared that with me. And he started this writing program within like a subset of the group, and said, why don't we just write and share our writings with each other. So I did that. I think I only did it for one day. And another member of the group read what I wrote and commented about it and liked what I had written. And that started a relationship where we were sharing, our experiences and helping each other through that. And this person ended up being my wife, my current wife.
The theme of our show is triumph over adversity.
Yes.
And I think we're going to see in very clear terms, we're going to see very clearly this theme executed in your own life. And we'll take a break right now, and we'll get into it as soon as we come back.
The legal process can be intimidating. You don't know where to start and you're unsure of what to expect. The attorneys and staff at the law offices of Scott Wormuth have been serving the San Gabriel Valley for over 35 years, helping people just like you navigate through the legal process and ensuring you're treated fairly. You can find them at law888.com or call 626-282-6868. That's 626-282-6868.
Okay, now we're still talking with Russell, our co-host, and getting to know him and his life. And I mentioned just before the break that you would see a very beautiful example of triumph over adversity. Russell having been brought to his knees by behavior that had harmed him, behavior from others, and his own self-choices, now rises majestically, you could almost say. I don't want to get too flowery about it, but it's an amazing story how you built a relationship with a woman that you love very dearly, and a woman who is, I must say, very wise and very supportive. And this all came out of a horrible experience in your life. So you were sharing your experiences online in your survivors group,
Mm-hmm.
in your survivors group. and you were introduced to Laurel.
I was, yes. Yes, she was in the group. She read my writing on that one topic, and we started a friendship. Every communication was just text messaging, and then voice messaging, and eventually we got up to FaceTime each other, and there was this instant connection, and the way that she spoke, the way that she does speak is unusual. It's not like anybody I had ever met before or spoke to before. And well, let me back up a bit. I did want a relationship. I was at a very low point in my life, and I remember praying. I remember praying that God would take me back, that I had been so far away in my walk with God and so distant, and I'm at such a low point in my life, and I'm just surrender to God and say, okay, I'm going to do whatever it is that you have for me to do. I'm going to come back to you. And my prayer wasn't for a wife, it wasn't for a family, but it just so happened that, I believe that God knows the desires of our heart, and that's what was given to me. And at that time, I really thought, okay, I don't want to go back into the dating world. I don't want to start over again. Am I ever going to have a family? Am I ever going to find a wife? Those thoughts were really going through my head at that time.
I know from personal observation that your relationship with your wife, Laurel, is something so deep and so, I believe you could say symbiotic, that it's a type of relationship a person rarely sees, this close connection and this absolute faithfulness to each other's convictions. And you probably couldn't have done that without what you had gone through. But you were lucky to find a person that was so, also so able to, understand what you had gone through.
Oh, yes.
And connect with you.
Yes. That's the easy part, though. Just to having that connection to first help us find each other. But she is a very powerful communicator, and she's able to describe things so that you can feel it, and this is handy in our relationship when she's trying to help me to understand what she's going through. She's able to create descriptions of things in ways that I've never known anybody to do that before. But she has helped me in my own journey to grow and to be a better communicator, a better partner, a better friend. Because just because I've become aware of my own dysfunction and my family history doesn't mean that I'm in no way, free of any dysfunction myself. I certainly had that in my communication style and the way that I was as a partner, as a husband. So she's been very instrumental in helping me to change.
Well, I've noticed how communication has become so important to you, and very clear and effective communication.
Yeah.
And this is something that you're learning with her, and she's learning with you, I would assume. But the just the clarity of communication that people should expect from another is something that I think has really taken I think this clarity of communication that people experience between each other is really something that is developing in you, and I don't see it developing in most people.
Well, you have to be authentic. You have to be willing to be uncomfortable, and you have to be willing to sit in that discomfort when there's disagreement. And I think for that, your relationship has to be strong enough to survive that. And most people are not confident in whatever relationship to rock the boat, right? Like they'd rather just sort of let things smooth out without conflict because they're sort of unsure whether that's romantic or a friendship. But I think in the long run, that does more damage and doesn't bring you closer than actually, having some conflict and resolving that. I think that's by far better. Yeah.
Tell us about your family.
So, in one fell swoop, I was blessed with this wife that I never imagined would have all these qualities that I wanted in a wife and more. And soon after, we were married very shortly after we met each other. And so we met, I think, in late September. We were married in December. And in February, the following year, was when I got word that she was pregnant. So, now we have a family of 4. She has a daughter from a previous relationship, but so now I'm a dad.
Right, and you've discovered how that is such a precious experience, isn't it?
Oh, yes. I've always wanted to be a dad, as long as I can remember. I love working with kids. I love kids, and I've always wanted to be a dad.
And your daughter is now, I believe, 3 years old?
4 years old. She just turned 4 last October, yeah.
Right. And she's one of the 2 loves of your life.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
One of the 3 loves. You've got two daughters,
yes.
One a stepdaughter and your wife.
Yes.
Yes. A family life is wonderful, isn't it?
It is. I treasure every moment that we have. I said that we met online, and that the listeners don't know exactly what that means, but I met my wife online, and she's from Canada. She lives in Canada. She still lives in Canada, and so we're about 2,000 miles apart.
And that has been a very difficult experience for you, having to make a trip, many times a year to be with your family, or they come to the U.S. From time to time as well.
Right.
But I know that that's a difficult thing to experience as well.
Very difficult. Yes. Yeah. Probably one of the hardest things in my life.
Yes. Yeah. Very. And yeah.
Yeah. I would say this though, and I do say this to people when they have this reaction to what I can only describe as they're feeling the pain of being separated. I said I would 100% take this and knowing that I have found the person I'm supposed to be with, than going through a number of relationships, or even one that was just sort of like, I'm not really sure. I'm just sort of, I'm settling for this. I would go through this knowing that this is the person that I'm supposed to be with.
And I know your commitment to that, again, because I know you, and this is your traveling star.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. It's hopefully not going to be like this forever. But we make we make the best out of it, right now.
Right. Well, okay. That is a very inspiring story, because you really are at a stage of happiness and satisfaction, having come out of a lot of tension and harm and danger.
Yeah.
And it's quite a journey. And what lies for you in the future? Do you know? Are there going to be any changes? Do you just continue your journey?
I look forward most to the things that I'm going to be able to do with my family, because those are the things that I've dreamt about,
Right.
Vacations and watching the kids learn new things and experience new things and creating family memories together. These are all the things that I really look forward to,
Right.
being able to create.
Yeah.
Yeah. Our own traditions, our own memories. Yeah.
So in addition to the things you're doing that have always been meaningful to you, like training, working with clients, and in addition to the family, which is the dearest and most important thing to you, you're looking forward to more of our podcast series.
Yes.
How did this develop?
Well, COVID. COVID was the main influencer, the main pusher, but in one fell swoop, the restrictions on business eliminated so much of what I do to earn a living. It's not just the training, but selling drinks at the gym that I work at and YouTube channel and other things associated with work. They were all just wiped out completely in one fell swoop. And I spent much of March and April, May of 2020, really considering what kind of pivot I could do. What are the skill sets that I have? That was actually a time of real panic for me. And I won't go into all the reasons why I came to podcasting, but podcasting seemed like the way to go based on what other people were doing. The podcasting spaces wasn't so saturated, and I felt that it was something that you and I could benefit from. And that was sort of the origin of it. I was learning about podcasting, and I still had to present it to you and see if this was something that you wanted to do. And we talked about it, and it took some time to actually hit record, as they say. But now we're 20 episodes in, and it feels a lot different than it was that first episode. The first episode was a little rough, but I really enjoy this. I enjoy the guests that we have. I enjoy seeing their reaction. I enjoy seeing or hearing feedback about the show, and I enjoy when Laurel watches it and gives me feedback. And I also enjoy this time with you, and I enjoy seeing you get excited about things. I enjoy you sharing your knowledge base about different subjects, about what the guests have to say, and it's a different perspective on who you are. And I really enjoy it.
Yeah, I'd have to say it's been a great experience, and I'm so glad that we're doing it. And you do another podcast as well.
I do, yeah. So that one isn't launched yet. We hope to launch in February. That one's called The Fit Fellows. And so there I talk about things related to being a personal trainer. And I have 2 co-hosts that have been doing it just as long as I have. And we're just putting our knowledge out there for people either thinking of becoming a trainer or young trainers. Yeah.
Well, that's great. And there may be more podcasts after that as well. So now is the time we call the SGV3, this portion of the program, where every guest, and that includes you, talks about their 3 favorite experiences, events, or places in the San Gabriel Valley. So
Right.
what stands out to you?
Well, I am a big food person. I love food. I enjoy food, but I don't eat the same way that I used to. So I don't go to as many restaurants as I used to anymore. But one of, I would say, the restaurants that have a special meaning or place in my heart is Kyosuzu. It's a sushi restaurant in Arcadia. And I used to go there 2, 3, 4 times a week sometimes. And I developed a relationship with the sushi chef there. And I think if anybody is really a sushi fan, it's not about the location. It's about the experience. And if someone says to me, "Oh, go to this sushi restaurant because they have good whatever tuna," I automatically disqualify them as someone who knows what they're talking about, because the fish changes every day, right? Like it more matters who is buying the fish, and who buys the fish matters their relationship with the fishmonger. And so the personality of the person buying the fish matters, and their longevity in the business. So Kyoto is the owner in Arcadia, and he's the actual one who goes to the fish market every morning. And he describes this to me. So I had a relationship with him for many years. Yeah.
So this is how you define a good sushi restaurant. Then the person who actually buys, that's what you're looking for is quality there, right?
Well, that goes to the quality of the fish, but that doesn't mean that you're going to get it. So unless a place has really high turnover all the time, their fish is going to degrade in quality. So if you have a relationship with the sushi chef, he is more likely to want to give you the better cuts. He's more likely going to say, "Don't eat this, you should eat this." And so what I would advise to people is, don't go trying all kinds of different sushi restaurants, because they're all actually getting it from the same place. Go to a place where you like the conversation with the chef, develop a relationship with the chef, and he's going to take care of you. That's 100% the best way.
And that's, again, that's in Arcadia in the name?
Kyosuzu.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I have an interesting story, an offshoot from that. So maybe 3-4 years of going there, talking to him, he one day says, "Do you want to train my daughter?" I said, "Sure." I had no idea who his daughter is. And when she showed up, I was like, okay, she's an athlete. But turns out she's Olympic figure skater.
And she was very prominent in the last Olympics. She won.
Oh, she didn't win, but she
came in 4th, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But she was the first female to perform a triple axel in Olympic competition.
Right.
Yeah. So that was a really interesting experience that I got from going to sushi.
And just as an aside, I can say that Russell has trained many notable athletes too.
Oh.
Many, and well-known names that you would recognize. So what's another place?
So a second place has to be Matador. Matador is where I work, where I've spent, for the most part, over the last 13 years, a lot of time there. And I've seen this facility grow from 2,500 square feet to what it is now, which is over 20,000 square feet.
Wow.
I've seen, people come and go. I've seen all the stories, heard all the stories there. In the worst times of my toxic relationship, I would spend nights there to get away. And a lot of memories are tied to people that I have worked with or still work with or have met, here. So that's a real special place in my heart.
And that's Matador Performance Center in San Gabriel, East Pasadena area. Right.
It's a phenomenal gym, just in that there is no gym like Matador that I've ever seen. A space where trainers can work, bring their clients, and it's a massive place. And Yeah.
And I'm a client of Russell's at that location, and and I've seen it grow even in the time I've been there.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And for reference, the owner or operator of Matador was a guest on our show.
Yes. Number 10.
Number 10.
Yeah.
And that's his name is
Joseph Del Toro.
Del Toro, right. Yeah. And so, it'd be a good idea to go back and take a listen to that show for any listener. Number 3.
Number three would have to be the hike that we go on. We talk often about hiking, and some trails are maybe familiar to the listener, like Echo Mountain or
Mount Wilson.
But the hike that you and I go on doesn't really have a name. We've given it the name Twin Trees Hike, but it's not really a marked trail. It's a water runoff at the top of a lake in Pasadena, and it's extremely strenuous. We've talked about it in other episodes. It's not so much meaningful because of the difficulty, but I would say that we've done it together maybe close to 200 times.
I would say that, probably 200.
So that's a lot. That's a lot for one trail. And I know, and Laurel knows, oftentimes that's where things get worked out in my head, in my life. If things are feeling difficult, if I feel like I want to have a conversation with you, if there's something on my mind, that's the immediate place where I feel like, okay, I know I'm going to feel better after I go there. I know, I don't think I've ever felt bad going there. And, we've had, if we've gone up for 200 times, that's a minimum 200 conversations. And, they're all over the place, with what's going on in your life and my life.
But they're all meaningful conversations.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what's special about that hike. As you say, it's not the location, it's not the trail. There's something spiritual about it.
Oh, yes. Yes. And the few times that people have joined us, sort of makes it even more special, because, you and I may, even if we don't say anything, we can look at each other and we know, okay, this person is really struggling to get up here. And it feels good to sort of have that measure to say, okay, this is really hard for this person, but we're doing this.
There have been times when, other real athletes have gone on that hike with us.
Right.
And even these real athletes had trouble keeping up.
Oh, yes.
Some of them not even able to go to the top. And it's not that far,
No.
It's for us, your fastest time was about 16 minutes to the towers.
Towers was 15:35.
15:35.
Yeah. The trees 18:58.
Right. So it can be done in a fairly short time, but it is the intensity of that time that is beyond belief.
Yes.
And so that's what makes it spiritual too, is that, most of the conversation is on the way down, because first off, you were always minutes ahead of me. And second, with that kind of struggle physically, you can't really talk. Mm-hmm. Now we do talk going up now, when we do it in a more relaxed way, not
relaxed for us, but
right.
Some people would still have trouble keeping up, I think.
That's true. So yeah, that's a very spiritual, very special hike, and I can understand that as being one of your 3.
Yeah, there's something also to be in the presence of someone else who is not going to quit, is going to push through, knows that. There's something to be said about
and
being
we've never quit.
No.
Not once.
No. No.
Even though I want, I don't feel that so much now. I don't ever feel like I want to quit now. But at the beginning, maybe say the first 6 months, there were times I definitely wanted to quit.
I told Billy went, after I went to Canada this last time, and he said that he understood what I meant by you have to gear up mentally at different points along the trail for him.
Right.
I said, you're going to get to a spot, you're going to look up and you're going to be challenged mentally to say, do I really want to keep going?
Right. That hike is, we've learned that the first half of it, I just say half to throw out a percentage, but, the first half of it is this very strenuous rock climb almost feel. And then the second half is just long and interminable. You just think it will never end. And it's funny, it's probably at most, 10 minutes, but it seems like, really, doesn't it seem like a half hour or an hour? Just that portion alone even.
Right.
It's incredible.
Even describing it like this I know the listeners, if you exercise or hike, you probably are like, oh, I can do it. Yeah. And maybe you can, but from my experience, people have almost always underestimated the difficulty.
Yes.
And if you're listening to this, he listens to all the shows,
Okay, so he's listening.
Yeah.
Okay, good to dig in.
Yeah, Thomas, he doesn't do it anymore with us, but at 73, he did it. And he got to the towers, I think, under 19.
Oh, Thomas is incredible. So I do have to, knowing that he's listening, I actually should say how much I do admire and respect his strength and his fortitude. Really incredible.
Yes.
And he beat me last time we ran up Echo Mountain.
Did he? Oh, yes, he did.
He did. He overtook me at the very end, but he did.
In seconds, though. I mean, you were talking less than 15 seconds.
Oh, yeah, definitely less than 15 seconds. But, like the difference between who is the great swimmer,
Michael Phelps?
Michael Phelps. And the second place, it was less than 15 seconds, but he was Michael Phelps,
okay.
He won gold medals.
Right.
The other guy came in last, but anyway, we've had a great time getting to know about Russell and for that matter, going into my own background as well. And this podcast, in the same way that hike is a very spiritual thing as well. It's really, I think, opened up something in each of us that we really value.
Right.
And until you do it, you don't know that you can do it.
Right.
And once you just take that first step, and that's really, I guess, the message I would like to get out right now is that take the first step on anything you want to accomplish. Take that first step and you're there. Right. But don't just think about it.
That is the hardest thing to do is to actually, put into action what you want to do, what you hope to do.
Yeah.
So, like the mountain. So the first step to go up there is driving there, getting there, and once you get going, it's hard.
Right.
But you do it.
And the literal first step is loose rock, and we've had a great time on that, and then this podcast is just another thing, and we're so grateful that people listen.
Yes, thank you for listening. Yeah.
Yes, thank you to everybody who does care to listen, and we'll be back next week with a new guest.
Yes. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for checking out another episode of the SGV Master Key. You can find the full back catalog of the SGV Master Key at sgvmasterkey.com and wherever you get your podcasts. This show was produced and edited by Russell Mano and Victoria Allers of Kind Monster Productions. Thanks again for listening or watching. We'll see you again real soon in the next episode.
Nice mother. No, kind mother.